shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve? On their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then we will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. Break our hearts once again. Help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these. If not us, who will be like Jesus to the least of these? If not us, tell me who will be like Jesus to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. We will love the least of these. 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 We will love the least of little hands, shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the end?
Good morning. Welcome to the King's Report. There I go bowing again. Welcome to the King's Report for October 18th, 2017, the 8th year of Cheongi, the 8th month and the 29th day of the month. We're coming to the end of the month, so if you look up into the night sky, I'm sure you'll see that we have close to a new moon, or a new moon, because that's what happens at the end of every month of the heavenly calendar. And of course, on the 15th day of each month, we have the full moon. And I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheongguk, Hyungjin Moon, and I'm here with Mr. Greg Knoll, a businessman and entrepreneur, And I'd like to go right. Let's see. I want to go first into our weather, don't I? It's about actually it's not quite as cold as I was expecting, as we were expecting it to be. I think it's about 36 degrees. I think at the Cheonryung Palace this morning, and we're expecting it to get up to 70 degrees, and that pattern is going to continue for the foreseeable future, which is about 5 or 6 days. And no rain in the forecast, but we're expecting it to get up to 70 degrees each day and into the upper 30s, mid to upper 30s each night. Then it'll get colder then towards the end of October. I want to go to our Rimas right away in Ezekiel chapter 22, verse 17. Be forewarned, when I choose a Rima, it's about 80% of the time it's gloom and doom. I guess that's my mission.
That's
to
what
give these prophetic, the Old Testament prophets. The Old Testament prophets really didn't say God didn't send them to say, "Oh, everything is okay." He sent prophets to say, "Hey, you guys got to repent, or else bad things are going to happen." Well, Ezekiel was one of those prophets.
Thank God for Psalms and a few other things.
Yes. Ezekiel chapter 22, and the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, the house of Israel is to me become dross, and they are brass and tin and iron and lead in the midst of the furnace. They are even the dross of silver. Now, dross is a word that we don't often hear, so I looked it up. Dross is a mass of solid impurities floating on a molten metal or dispersed in the metal, such as in wrought iron. It forms on the surface of low melting point metals, such as tin, lead, zinc, or aluminum, or alloys, by oxidation of the metal. All right, so that's what Ezekiel is talking about. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, because ye are all become dross, behold, therefore, I will gather you into the midst of Jerusalem, as they gather silver and brass and iron and lead and tin into the midst of the furnace, to blow the fire upon it, to melt it. So I will gather you in mine anger and in my fury, and I will leave you there and melt you. Yea, I will gather you and blow upon you in the fire of my wrath, and ye shall be melted into the midst thereof. As silver is melted in the midst of the silver, so shall ye be melted in the midst thereof. And ye shall know that I, the Lord, have poured out my fury upon you. Now here, of course, in Ezekiel's time, God was speaking to Israel, the house of Israel. But of course, we have the second Israel, which is Christianity, and especially represented by the United States. And we have the third Israel, Korea, and of course, the blessed families are also the third Israel. So many blessed families, almost all blessed families, were taken into Satan's lineage at the false foundation day of 2013, February 2013, and many still remain there. Only a remnant have been able to come to back to Father's lineage. Although 1,000 or 10,000 people did, more than 3,000 families have, and I think now after 3,000 families as of Father's birthday in 2016, and more than 1,000 have since, in addition to that, because 800 and something in Japan alone, I think around 840 in Japan alone, and I don't have the figures off the top of my head, but others have also shared, probably about 1,200 or so. Did I say 8,000? 800 I meant. 840. What did I say?
Yeah, you said 840.
Okay, 840. So, so perhaps between 1,200 and 2,000 have also come to True Father's authority since Father's birthday in 2016. So quite a few have. However, when you think of the number of blessed families that Father was able to create during his time on earth, it's still a kind of a remnant. It's not a majority. The majority still remain in Satan's lineage. And many don't even know this because the Family Federation has been successful in blocking this word from getting to families. And just, although we've done our best to get the word out, still that many people are living sort of in that bubble, bubble. So that's very much of a tragedy, but it is, however, a fact. Of course, people can return to True Father's authority at any time. And if someone is listening to this broadcast who has not returned to True Father's authority, you can do so by contacting us or contacting. You probably know someone in your vicinity who is in the Sanctuary Church, and you can work through them to return. Anyway.
Or come visit us.
Yes, come visit us in Northeast Pennsylvania. That's certainly an option. And we perform those blessings on any Sunday, most Sundays anyway. Mm-hmm. Most Sundays we can perform those blessings. And we will give you what the information that you need to have in order to return to True Father's authority. But otherwise, you are dross, I guess, and you'll be melted in the fury of the fire of God's fury. I wouldn't wait for that. I wouldn't wait for that. Let's see. Shall we go on to the Chun Song-kyung? Chun Song-kyung is a much nicer message.
Well, judgment is a real message of love.
Yes, it is.
It's something that we need. We
Yes.
need to get the impurities out of us as individuals and as a culture.
Yes.
That's what's happening right now. The judgment has begun.
Yes.
Hollywood and
Yes.
everything. There's a lot of purification going on, and it's a God's love for us.
Isn't that amazing what's happening in Hollywood with the whole entertainment industry? And it's actually spreading beyond the entertainment industry, even to the fashion industry now. That's really, and that happened soon after True Mother's installation. Isn't that wonderful? That because now we have a True Mother who is, who actually loves True Father and testifies to True Father, and does not try to set herself above True Father or even equal to True Father. Now women are being liberated. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. And children too.
Yes.
Children's Day is coming up. It's interesting to see the highest elites are all guilty of this sexual harassment and pedophile behavior, just as the king has been talking about for the last
Reese
several
Witherspoon and others are coming out and saying that they were molested as children. Yes.
Yeah.
And so it's not just, originally it was just young women in their early to mid-20s, but now people are coming out saying that they were molested as children.
And it's much harder to
Barbara
come out.
Walters interview is coming out also, where she sort of scolded an actor who said that he was molested as a child. How can you condemn an entire industry? Well, guess what? It deserves condemnation. Miss Walters and the journalists are complicit.
Yeah.
Especially the Hollywood journalists are complicit, and people like Barbara Walters are also complicit because they help to keep it suppressed. Don't say that, don't say that. How can you condemn an entire industry? Well, guess what? Now the entire industry is up in arms and is being condemned. This is the day of judgment, but it's a judgment of love by God.
It's a national disgrace because the Hollywood is not just a national entity. It is Hollywood movies have gone throughout the world promoting decadence, promoting promiscuity, promoting everything.
The destruction of the family.
Yeah, everything that is an abomination to God.
Yes.
So God's wrath and God's fury ultimately is to save souls, and that's kind of what's happening now.
Shall we go to the Chun Song-kyung? In the Chun Song-kyung, I am in the book on the restoration of God's homeland, of the true God's homeland, and I'm in that's book 13. I'm in chapter 3, section 5, page 2073, I believe, and these were words spoken in 1991. And that is why I could declare the true parents. So again, I think I like to now. I really feel that almost always, we need to translate that into singular. This is why I could declare the true parent, and be welcomed by you, and go over the summit of the world that Satan has used as his stage, and stand at the top. the time has come when I can return to Korea, connecting the globe with the heavenly nation, and then hold a declaration ceremony for the settlement of sovereignty. Do you understand? Therefore, I'm pushing hard. If I focus my attention on you totally, you won't be able to say anything. I won't be hitting you with a clenched fist. The time will come when I can win over the people with just my thoughts. Now, I was not going to rag on the translation today. However, I am struck by lightning here, because when I read the Korean earlier, there was the word 왕권. And here it is, that is kingship. And did you hear me say kingship?
No.
You didn't?
No.
Did you?
I would have liked to.
Yes. Because here it is translated as sovereignty. Why would they do that? Actually, these words were spoken in 1990. So here in the Korean, 왕권 정착 선포식. Yeah, so here is the declaration ceremony. It should be declaration ceremony for the settlement of kingship. Is what the Korean says.
Which also indicates sovereignty, but it's much more clear.
Yes. So that's why, Family Federation members now are saying, what's this about a king? Yeah. Because the translation is wrong. Now, I may have translated this. I don't know. If so, I should be hitting myself. I don't know. I don't know who translated this. It's not impossible that I translated this. So I'm not, and I'm not blaming the translator so much. Because, translation is always limited by the translator's understanding of the word. All right. So as the translator's understanding of the word develops, then translations will improve. And maybe the translator says, kingship, Western readers are not going to react so positively to that. So instead of saying kingship, let's say sovereignty. All right. That's not wrong, is it? But now we see, that Jesus' gospel was the gospel of the kingship, of the kingdom, And I've learned that I didn't know that until the king started talking about that, until the second king started going through the Bible and showing that. And it's true. Wow, Jesus' gospel was the gospel of the kingdom. The Lord's Prayer is about kingdom. Thy kingdom come. Thy will be done on this earth as it is in heaven. And throughout the gospel, you see that Jesus keeps talking about the kingdom, kingdom, kingdom. And even after he's crucified, and during the 40 days that he was on earth with his disciples, it says in Acts chapter 1, I think it's verse 2 or so, that during those 40 days he talked about the kingdom. He talked about the kingdom. And so kingdom was very, very important to Jesus, and it's also important to Father, because Father came to establish God's kingdom on earth. And so here in the Korean,
a kingdom centered on the lineage.
Yeah,
of kings. Yeah,
centered on the lineage. Yes, a kingdom centered on the lineage, not a satanic kingdom, but a heavenly kingdom, which is completely reversed. And our second king said, this is not just a satanic kingdom; it's a kingdom of kings. It's a kingdom of kings. So that we can go into all that, but so also here, Father says that so talks about the settlement for the declaration ceremony for the settlement of kingship. 왕권 정착 선포식. And I read that in the Korean earlier this morning, and so when I read the English. And I wasn't going to rag on the translation, because people get tired of that every morning. But, this has to be pointed out. This has to be pointed out. That what the Korean says is the declaration ceremony for kingship. Wow. That was in 1990 that Father spoke these words. And of course in 2001 he had the declaration ceremony for God's coronation of God's kingship. God's kingship.
Kingship was core to Father's teaching.
Yes.
And Father wore a crown.
Yes. All right, so I don't know who translated this. Let's assume it was me, and I will apologize. If it wasn't me, I will apologize on the behalf of whoever did this, repent. So maybe that's why I'm doing this morning.
Part of your repentance.
God is giving me this opportunity to repent, whether it's on my own behalf or behalf of whoever translated this, I don't know. Okay, Rio is playing the music, giving me mercy. All right, we'll take a break now, and we'll come back with start going through the news from a Chonryuk perspective.
To grieve on their own, on the run, when their lives have only begun. These could be our daughters and our sons. And just like a drum, I can hear their hearts beating. I know my God won't let them be defeated. Every child has a dream to belong and be loved.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these.
Okay, we're back with the King's Report for October 18th, 2017, the 29th day of the 8th month in the heavenly calendar. And we have good news this morning. The Russian probe has borne some fruit. Yes, we looked under it. We finally found how the Russians have been meddling. As you might guess from our laughter, it is not what the Democratic Party was expecting or hoping for. But it was this uranium deal, which actually people have been talking about, for some time, how Hillary gave the Putin control over 20% of the U.S. Uranium sort of source or something like that. And it turns out that there was bribery involved. This is the FBI, and this is not being published by one of those great journalistic sources that the left considers to be conspiracy mongers, but it's called The Hill. The Hill is a publication that specializes in what goes on Capitol Hill, and they're rather globalist and rather they say they try to be objective, but they're objective between the Democratic Party and Republican Party, and since both of those are basically the Soros Party, they're basically a globalist publication. And The Hill now has pointed out that the FBI has come up with some solid evidence that yes, there was bribery that was involved in the Obama administration, and especially Secretary of State to Hillary Clinton, giving control of a very important uranium source to Russia. And so now the probe is starting there, going in there. Senate Judiciary opens probe into Obama-era Russian nuclear bribery case. The Senate Judiciary Committee has launched a full-scale probe into a Russian nuclear bribery case, demanding several federal agencies to disclose whether they knew the FBI had uncovered the corruption before the Obama administration in 2010 approved a controversial uranium deal with Moscow. Senator Chuck Grassley Republican of Iowa, the committee chairman, gets his first chance to raise the issue in public on Wednesday, that's today, when he questions Attorney General Jeff Sessions during an oversight hearing. Though the hearing was scheduled for other purposes, aides said they expected Grassley to ask Sessions questions about a story published in The Hill on Tuesday that disclosed the FBI had uncovered evidence showing Russian nuclear officials were engaged in a racketeering scheme involving bribes, kickbacks, and money laundering designed to expand Russian President Vladimir Putin's atomic energy business on U.S. soil. The evidence was first gathered in 2009 and 2010, but Department of Justice officials waited until 2014 to bring any charges. In between that time, my mouth is somehow not functioning today. In between that time, President Obama's Multi-Agency Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, CFIUS, gave approval to Russia's Rosatom to buy a Canadian mining company called Uranium One that controlled 20% of America's uranium deposits.
Which is an incredibly valuable asset.
And this is the story that has been kicking around, and people have been saying, oh, and the left has been saying, oh, no, conspiracy. But we now have it as fact. The committee's members at the time included former Attorney General Eric Holder and former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton, whose husband collected large speech fees and millions in charitable donations from Russia and other entities interested in the outcome of the decision.
Yeah.
Lock her up.
The Clinton Foundation
Lock her up.
got $145 million.
Lock her up.
Yes. I think these foundations should be outlawed while somebody's a president.
Well, wait a second. Hold
while
on
somebody's a president.
Freedom. Hey,
Yeah, but still,
whoa.
it's so easy to
Don't
buy
don't
influence.
Don't go creating more laws now. We want freedom.
No, but it's a serious compromise when people have such freedom to donate to these nonprofits.
But let's. Hey, I happen to run a nonprofit. Wait a second here. You and I happen to have been involved in a nonprofit which collects donations. So wait a second here.
But I'm talking about while somebody's the president of the United States, the buying of influence is so easily corruptible.
But we need transparency. You see, we need transparency.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. Don't touch the nonprofits. Don't go making laws about nonprofits.
But
We like nonprofits.
the Clinton Foundation should be thoroughly investigated.
Yes. Transparency, I say. Yeah. We would welcome an investigation into our nonprofit because we have nothing to hide. But the Clinton Foundation apparently has a lot to hide and they're not going to give back Weinstein's donations because they probably don't have the money anymore. But anyway, that's another story. They probably spent anyway. So that's
still
another
giving
story.
to the foundation.
Let's stay on this story for a while. Grassley dispatched letters late last week. Letters late week to all federal agencies whose executives served on the CFIUS when the decision was made, demanding to know whether they were aware of the FBI case before they voted. He also questioned whether the documented corruption that was uncovered posed a national security threat that should have voided approval of the uranium deal. It has recently come to the committee's attention that employees of Rosatom were involved in a criminal enterprise involving a conspiracy to commit, now everybody's talking about conspiracy, involving a conspiracy to commit extortion and money laundering during the time of the CFIUS transaction, Grassley wrote in one such letter addressed to Sessions. The fact that Rosatom's subsidiaries in the United States were under criminal investigation as a result of a U.S. intelligence operation apparently around the time CFIUS approved the Uranium One Rosatom transaction raises questions about whether the information factored into CFIUS's decision to approve the transaction, the chairman added. Grassley has been one of the few congressional leaders to have consistently raised questions about the uranium deal, and in 2015, agencies told his committee that they had no national security reasons to reject the Moscow approval. Those representations, however, made no mention of the FBI probe or the national security issues uncovered by agents, including the fact that Russian officials had compromised an American trucking firm that transported uranium. Grassley's letters demanded answers from the agencies by no later than October 26th. So, here we go again. Lock her up. In fact, not just her, but a whole bunch of them. So this
uranium is used for what purpose? The Russians, that's part of the nuclear program?
Well, uranium has a number of uses, but yeah, most prominently it's used in nuclear weapons. Yes.
So feeding a potential enemy,
Right.
a very valuable resource.
Right. That's why this was obviously at least it's been shown that the FBI had uncovered this information, that this transaction did pose a national security threat, and that it was the result of bribery. The transaction was the result of bribery.
Backroom deals, cash
Here,
under the table.
and here is the Tuesday article here that this previous article referred to, also on The Hill, in the publication called The Hill. FBI uncovered Russian bribery plot before Obama administration approved controversial nuclear deal with Moscow. So the thing is that FBI uncovered this bribery plot or transaction situation, and so the FBI knew about it, and the FBI is under the Justice Department. So did the Justice Department know about it, and did other members of this committee that approved the deal, did they know about it?
One would think so.
One would think so, yes. Before the Obama administration approved a controversial deal in 2010, giving Moscow control of a large swath of American uranium, the FBI had gathered substantial evidence that Russian nuclear industry officials were engaged in bribery, kickbacks, extortion, and money laundering designed to grow Vladimir Putin's atomic energy business inside the United States, according to government documents and interviews. Federal agents used a confidential U.S. witness working inside the Russian nuclear industry to gather extensive financial records, make secret recordings, and intercept emails as early as 2009 that showed Moscow had compromised an American uranium trucking firm with bribes and kickbacks in violation of the Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, FBI and court documents show. All right, this is no longer a theory. It's FBI documents, court documents.
It sounds like they have quite a bit of evidence.
Right. They have solid evidence. They also obtained it. So now the question is not whether or not this actually happened. It happened. FBI knew it happened. FBI had the evidence that it happened. They have documents that it happened. So now the question is, who knew about it, and when did they know?
Right.
They also obtained an eyewitness account, backed by documents, indicating Russian nuclear officials had routed millions of dollars to the U.S., designed to benefit former President Bill Clinton's charitable foundation during the time Secretary of State Hillary Clinton served on a government body that provided a favorable decision to Moscow, sources told The Hill.
Yep.
The racketeering schemes were conducted with the consent, quote, with the consent of higher-level officials, end quote, in Russia, who shared the proceeds from the kickbacks, one agent declared in an affidavit years later. Rather than bring immediate charges in 2010, however, the Department of Justice continued investigating the matter for nearly 4 more years, essentially leaving the American public and Congress in the dark about Russian nuclear corruption on U.S. soil during a period when the Obama administration made 2 major decisions benefiting Putin's commercial nuclear ambitions. So, collusion between Obama and Putin, now proven. Obama and Putin. Collusion. The first
4
decision.
years. What's it take 4 years to investigate something like that? That's just absurd.
It takes 4 years to investigate something that the president doesn't want you to investigate. Right. That's basically that's. The first decision occurred in October 2010 when the State Department and government agencies on the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States unanimously approved the partial sale of Canadian mining company Uranium One to the Russian nuclear giant Rosatom, giving Moscow control of more than 20% of America's uranium supply. When this sale was used by Trump on the campaign trail last year, Hillary Clinton's spokesman said she was not involved in the committee review and noted the State Department official who handled it said she never intervened on any committee matter. In 2011, the administration gave approval for Rosatom's Tenex subsidiary to sell commercial uranium to U.S. nuclear power plants in a partnership with the United States Enrichment Corp. Before then, Tenex had been limited to selling U.S. nuclear power plants reprocessed uranium recovered from dismantled Soviet nuclear weapons under the 1990s megatons for megawatts peace program. The Russians were compromising America's contractors in the nuclear industry with kickbacks and extortion threats, all of which raised legitimate national security concerns. And none of that evidence got aired before the Obama administration made those decisions, unquote, a person who worked on the case told The Hill, speaking on condition of anonymity for fear of retribution by U.S. or Russian officials. I'll bet, yeah. I mean, how many people gone against the Clintons have turned up dead? Mm-hmm. The Obama administration's decision to approve Rosatom's purchase of Uranium-1 has been a source of political controversy since 2015. That's when conservative author Peter Schweizer and the New York Times documented how Bill Clinton collected hundreds of thousands of dollars in Russian speaking fees, and his charitable foundation collected millions of donations from parties interested in the deal, while Hillary Clinton presided on the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States. This may turn out to be another thing like Weinstein, you know, mm-hmm. where things come crumbling down.
That would be really awesome.
Yeah.
Time has come.
The Obama administration and the Clintons defended their actions at the time, insisting there was no evidence that any Russian donors engaged in wrongdoing, and there was no national security reasons for any member of the committee to oppose the Uranium-1 deal. Nah, hey, you know, we don't know anything. We just work here.
20% gone.
But FBI, Energy Department, and court documents reviewed by The Hill showed the FBI, in fact, had gathered substantial evidence well before the committee's decision that Vadim Mikerin, the main Russian overseeing Putin's nuclear expansion inside the United States, was engaged in wrongdoing starting in 2009. Then Attorney General Eric Holder was among the Obama administration officials joining Hillary Clinton on the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States at the time the Uranium-1 deal was approved. Multiple current and former government officials told The Hill they did not know. I don't know whether the FBI or DOJ ever alerted committee members to the criminal activity they uncovered. I have no recollection. I don't remember anything. A spokesman for Eric Holder and Clinton did not return calls. My phone is out of the battery. I don't have any. I'm sorry, I can't take your calls. The Justice Department also didn't comment. Mikerin was the director of Rosatom's Tenex in Moscow since the early 2000s, where he oversaw Rosatom's nuclear collaboration with the United States under the Megatons for Megawatts program and its commercial uranium sales to other countries. In 2010, Mikerin was dispatched to the U.S. on a work visa approved by the Obama administration to open Rosatom's new American arm called Tenam. Between 2009 and January 2012, Mikerin did knowingly and willfully, this is a quote, combine, conspire, confederate, and agree with other persons to obstruct, delay, and affect commerce and the movement of an article and commodity, parentheses, enriched uranium, close parentheses, in commerce by extortion, in November 2014 indictment stated. His illegal conduct was captured with the help of a confidential witness, an American businessman, who began making kickback payments at Mikerin's direction and with the permission of the FBI. The first kickback payment recorded by the FBI through its informant was dated November 27, 2009, the records show. In evidentiary affidavits signed in 2014 and 15, an Energy Department agent assigned to assist the FBI in the case testified that Mikerin supervised a racketeering scheme that involved extortion, bribery, money laundering, and kickbacks that were both directed by and provided benefit to more senior officials back in Russia. As part of the scheme, Mikerin, with the consent of higher officials at Tenex and Russian Rosatom, would offer no-bid contracts to the U.S. businesses in exchange for kickbacks in the form of money payments made to some offshore bank accounts, Agent David Gadrin testified. Mikerin apparently then shared the proceeds with other co-conspirators associated with Tenex in Russia and elsewhere. Wow.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Pretty bad. Pretty bad. The case also exposed a serious national security breach. Mikerin had given a contract to an American trucking firm called Transport Logistics International that held the sensitive job of transporting Russia's uranium around the United States in return for more than $2 million in kickbacks from some of its executives, court records show.
Wow. Quite a bit of records there. I think that this would be something that could possibly pull Hillary down, and Obama.
Yeah, and Holder as well, Eric Holder.
Mm-hmm. This really is a band of thieves.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Lock them up. Lock them up. So that's going to be an ongoing story in the next days and weeks, I can see. All right, let's take a break and we'll come back with more news after this.
Once again, help us to remember when we were only children hoping for a friend. Won't you look around? These are the lives that the world has forgotten, waiting for doors of our hearts and our homes to open.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these, then they will be brave and free. Shout your name in victory. When we love the least of these, when we love the least of these.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second king of Cheonryuk. And this segment, I want to look at a little bit at the National Conference of the Chinese Communist Party that opened today in China. Can we show those photographs now? You see one. We're looking at one right now where the I guess it's on a jumbotron there, where people on the street on bicycles and motorcycles are looking back and looking up at the jumbotron, so to see the coverage of that, the opening of that ceremony of that conference. And it's a very important conference in China because basically in China, as you know, the government comes below the Communist Party. The government is basically the political arm of the Communist Party. The military is the People's Liberation Army is the political arm of the Chinese Communist Party. And the charter of the Chinese Communist Party is, in effect, the constitution of the People's Republic of China. So the Communist Party is supreme overall, over the government, over the military, and of course over all other institutions. And so this conference of the Communist Party that happens every 5 years is perhaps the most important political and economic and military event that happens in that country. And Xi Jinping, of course, is being reelected to a second term as head of the Communist Party, second 5-year term, and he is trying to amend the charter of the party so that his name can be inserted there, and he will become, in terms of the history of the party, he will have a similar or equal or superior position to people like Deng Xiaoping and Mao Zedong. So that's what's happening in China right now. And as you can see, the title of this story is, in China, there's nothing like a dry 3-hour Xi Jinping speech to get the party going. So Xi Jinping spoke for 3 hours today. In China, it's already evening. But he spoke for 3 hours today, where he sort of laid out his vision for the future of China, about how, and this is one man that controls the population of China, whether that's 1.3 billion officially or 1.6 billion actually, or whatever it is. We don't really know how many people live in China, but he controls a huge number of people, a very significant chunk of the world population. Out of 7 billion, 1.3, what's that? A fifth or something like that, close, somewhere around there. And he's sort of become. The Western elite would like to become like him, right? They like to be able to control the entire 7 billion in the way that Xi Jinping controls the 20% or so of the world population. But the bottom line of his speech is that I have not read the whole speech. I've read sort of reports of it, summaries of it this morning. Is that okay? We can have reform, we can have openness, but the purpose of reform, the purpose of openness, is to strengthen the Communist Party, to strengthen the central control of the Communist Party. So, and we need to understand that when we see sort of openness or reform, we say, oh, China is becoming more democratic. It's not becoming democratic. The purpose of that is to strengthen the one-party dictatorship of the Communist Party, and that is what
couched in the area of this is good for the nation.
Yes. Yeah, because and they call it socialism with Chinese characteristics. I remember in Korea when Park Chung-hee was a dictator there, he in the 70s especially, he was killed in '79. Assassinated by his own CIA director. His thing was, we can have democracy, but Korean characteristics, democracy with Korean characteristics, which is what he called his dictatorship. So something similar is happening in China, I suppose. Now, whether they can get away with this, of course they cannot over the long run. And at some point, it's a bubble. Socialism is a bubble. It's anything that does not come from God eventually is going to be a bubble and it's going to burst. And so the question is, when is that going to happen? Well, I want to go through the photographs that you see lower down there, a little bit. Go further down there. You see public security officials gathering in front of one mobile phone to watch the 19th Party Congress. So everybody's watching it. And go down there a little bit further and you see people watching it, I guess, in restaurants or something like that. But what really gets me is the one at the very bottom. If you show the photograph at the very bottom of this article, where you have, there you go, a bunch of kindergarten kids lined up.
They're taking it all in.
Taking it all in. This is amazing to me. I mean, this is really... They start early in the indoctrination, don't they?
If you watch really well, carefully, you can have some milk.
That's right. So, I guess the message to them here is that, okay, this is our beloved leader, our all-powerful leader, and so we need to sit and watch him for 3 hours. And don't fidget.
That's right.
Don't fidget.
Yeah.
Compare that to the speech that President Trump gave to the Values Voters Summit last Friday, I think it was.
Were any kindergartners watching that?
Probably not. In fact, no media carried it nationwide.
That's right.
It was not on any jumbotrons, I don't think.
Should have been.
Should have been, yes. It was a fantastic speech.
If Obama was giving the same speech, it would have been everywhere.
It was a fantastic speech where he's, one of the things we said is that I think that we don't worship government, we worship God. Mm-hmm. And he talked about bringing Christmas back and bringing back Christianity. And I think it really is a contrast here And it didn't go 3 hours, I don't think. I don't know how long it went, but it did not go 3 hours. So that's that. A little bit of a pictorial interlude there in our work.
And people forget that the Chinese, I think the whole millennial population doesn't really understand what communism is, what Marxism is, as an anti-God,
Yes.
Political,
Anti-human.
anti-human. Yeah,
Yes.
They really consider it just another political
Yes.
party, and people are free to choose whatever they want. But this is a form of government that's responsible for how many millions of deaths?
Tens of millions of,
Yeah,
yes,
I think
in
it's,
China.
like, at least 120, 150 million people have died under this ideology.
Yeah, that's right, including around the world, yes, including Russia and other countries, yes. And even in North Korea now, hundreds of thousands of people are in these camps, concentration camps, where they go if they, if they express any kind of opposition against the central government.
China has just passed this technology that facial recognition, which will be implemented nationwide over, it says 1.3 billion people, which will be able to track people's movements throughout the day, every day, 365 days a year. The government will know exactly where you are, what you're purchasing, what your activity is. And they're also moving rapidly in a cashless society.
Yes.
Where every transaction will be done through some kind of chip or some kind of card. So the whole entrepreneurial class that thrives off of cash will be eliminated, and the government will know every single transaction.
Which brings us to George Soros. I wanted to the next article I wanted to look at is this article about George Soros donating or transferring $18 billion to his Open Society foundations.
Not 18 million.
Billion, yes,
Billion.
$18 billion. This is on the Breitbart left-wing billionaire George Soros has transferred $18 billion to his Open Society foundations, the primary vehicle for his global political activism and philanthropy. The transfer, according to the Wall Street Journal, accounts for most of Soros's foundation, which he accrued through a controversial career as an investor and as a Nazi collaborator, actually. The journal notes Open Society has vaulted to the top ranks of philanthropic organizations, appearing to become the second largest in the U.S. by assets after the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, based on 2014 figures from the National Philanthropic Trust. Soros, who is 87, transferred the funds as part of a plan to make sure his activism continues after he retires or passes away. $18 billion is roughly 3 times the amount of money spent by all parties in all races during the 2016 election cycle, according to Open Secrets. Though not all of the Open Society Foundation's activities will be focused on the United States, Soros's grant easily makes his organization the biggest player on the American political scene. Globally, Soros is involved in efforts to make Ireland pro-abortion, to demonize the Israeli government, and to promote migration from the Muslim world into Europe across open borders. Though Soros's foundation was originally aimed at fostering open societies as opposed to authoritarian systems, in recent years the foundation's work has supported dogmatic, aggressive, left-wing groups that disrupt liberal democracy and stifle opposing voices. Soros has funded Black Lives Matter movement and is considering bankrolling the so-called resistance to President Donald Trump. He also backs Media Matters, a so-called watchdog group that spends most of its energy trying to eliminate conservatives from the media. Soros recently named former ambassador and Democratic National Committee official Patrick Gaspard as president of the Open Society Foundation as of the end of 2017. So, and the headline there is Death Star, George Soros. So he's building his Death Star.
Mm-hmm. Right at a time when the king was mentioning that the beginning of November will be the launch of much more aggressive attacks by liberal leftist groups. So they're getting their funding in order, which is always necessary. To, you got to hire these hacks to get out there. They don't do it as a volunteer, so they they gotta pay him good money to get out there and protest.
And then James Mattis, the Defense Secretary, is going to speak at a Soros-backed former think tank. Secretary of Defense James Mattis is confirmed to speak at the annual conference of a George Soros-financed think tank that is also funded by the controversial Plowshares Fund, identified by the Obama White House as central to helping sell the Iran nuclear deal to the public and news media. The International Institute for Strategic Studies, which has been heavily supportive of the Iran agreement, announced on its website that Mattis will lead a session of the IISS Manama Dialogue, which will take place in Bahrain from December 8th to the 10th, 2017. He and other leading policymakers from the region and beyond will gather to examine the Middle East's most pressing security questions, the IISS website says of Mattis's role in the conference. IISS has other ties to senior Trump administration officials. From September 2006 to February 2017, White House National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster was listed as a member of the IISS, where he served as consulting senior fellow. Besides taking in direct financing from Soros' Open Society Institute and the Plowshares Fund, which itself is financed by Soros, Breitbart News recently reported that IISS is heavily bankrolled by multinational corporate firms doing billions of dollars in business with Iran. So, 2 out of 3 of the generals around Trump are connected to that. Not so good. Not so good at all. All right, let's take a break, and we'll come back with more news from a Chinese perspective.
Like Jesus, to the least of these. If not us, tell me who will be. Like Jesus, to the least of these. Boys become kings, girls will be queens, wrapped in your majesty. When we love the least of these. Then they will.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Brave and free, such a name in victory. We will love the least of these. 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 We will love
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second King of Chunuguk, and I'm with Greg Knoll. And so Soros has his $18 billion, but then McClatchy News is reporting that Trump's small dollar donors fuel surge in GOP fundraising. Yeah. The Republican National Committee raised more than $100 million. It's not $18 billion, but anyway, raised more than $100 million. It
seems like pretty small, a little P.
But hey, you're going against the Death Star, right? More than $100 million in the first 9 months in 2017, marking the first time it has raised that much, that fast, in a non-presidential election year. So the news is good. All right? We'll worry about the Death Star later, all right? Let's work with our small nest egg of $100 million first.
The question that I brought up yesterday was: Is Trump going to be creating a third party of a distinct party separate from the neocons and the Democrats, or is he truly going to reform the Republican Party? I think that's an interesting question.
And I
through
think
this next election.
Yes, and I think Bob Byerly was very much against that.
Right, a third party, yeah.
Yeah, a third party.
I don't think a third party is bad.
You don't think a third party is bad?
I think a third party, we need something that really represents Father's thought of headwing. And I don't think the Republican Party can be redeemed to fit that role. But
Bannon's going to try hard.
Yeah, he is. He's part of this. He's part of this cleansing. What do you call it in Rima? The Drost.
The dross?
The Drost of the Republican Party.
Yeah, he has declared war on the Republican establishment, and he's saying that he's going to support primary candidates in the Republican primaries next year that will go up against establishment candidates. And the report I've seen somewhere was that the Democrats are actually kind of secretly cheering him on. I guess they feel that if the Republican Party is divided, they can take advantage of that.
Right. There might be two Republican candidates or one third-party candidate, which would divide the vote.
Right.
That is the threat of a third party, is it does divide the conservative vote.
Of course, President Lincoln was elected in his original election in 1860, where there were three presidential candidates, and he benefited that because actually he only won about 40% of the popular vote, I think. This is the Hill again. Bannon's move to purge GOP may backfire, saying that while President Trump claims that his relations with Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell have never been better, and while Stephen Bannon continues his war against McConnell and a long list of Republican senators, we will learn whether Bannon is fronting for Trump or acting against him. If Bannon does not end his attacks against the incumbent GOP senators, we will know that he is colluding with the president, who is dividing Republicans and all Americans against each other and endangering the GOP control of Congress. Is this an opinion piece? Opinion contributor, I see. Okay. So that's what this guy. That's his opinion. What's going to happen? So we'll see. We'll see. But in Alabama right now, Bannon supported Roy Moore against the establishment candidate Luther Strange in the primary, and now that's a solidly Republican state. And yet Roy Moore, the Republican candidate, is only polling about equal with the Democratic candidate. So that would seem to suggest that if the Democrat wins in Alabama, that would be a serious blow to Bannon's effort. Yeah. A Republican Roy Moore, an anti-Republican establishment candidate, is tied at 42% apiece with Democrat Doug Jones in the U.S. Senate race in deep red Alabama. A Fox News poll also finds that among just the 53% of Alabama registered voters who are extremely or very interested in the race, Jones has a 1 point edge over Moore, 46 to 45. The special election to fill the U.S. Senate seat vacated by U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions is December 12th. So that's going to be a very important race. And, of course, we know about polls, right? But we'll see, you know. Of course, the only poll that matters is the one that happens on Election Day, where people actually cast their votes, and they're counted that way.
I think polls, like most political apparatuses, are controlled by the left.
Yeah, and, you know, we've read articles about how polls originally were developed not to find out what public opinion is, but to shape public opinion. So,
Yeah.
well, we know all about that. But still, it is a sometimes they're right. So it is a source of concern. And we'll have to see about that. I wanted to get to this article of the LAPD. And as I try to go into the LA Times, they give me a thing about my favorite baseball team. You know how they say that a watched pot never boils? So all the time that I was watching the Dodgers, they didn't do badly, but they didn't actually win the World Series or anything. And now that I'm too busy to watch them,
They're doing well.
I think they're one game away from getting into the World Series. I think so. I think they won their third game, didn't they? Anyway, if I watch it, then I may jinx it, so I better not. LAPD becomes nation's largest police department to test drones after oversight panel signs off on controversial program. This is the LA Times. After months of often heated debate, a civilian oversight panel Tuesday signed off on a year-long test of drones by the Los Angeles Police Department, which will become the largest police department in the nation to deploy the controversial technology. This is coming. This is coming.
It's a tsunami.
Yes.
You can't stop it.
The police commission's 3-1 vote prompted jeers, cursing, and a small protest that spilled into a downtown intersection just outside the LAPD's glass headquarters, evidence of the opposition police have faced in recent weeks as they tried to reassure worried residents that the airborne devices would not be misused.
We can trust that.
Yes, we can trust that. Trust us, we're the government.
We have your best interest in mind.
Oh, yes.
Your safety, your security.
Yes, which is why we lock you up, for your safety. The use of drones, or small unmanned aerial systems, in police speak, has become a contentious issue for law enforcement in Los Angeles, where the nation's largest sheriff's department has flown one since January. Advocates say camera-mounted drones could help protect officers and others by collecting crucial information during high-risk situations or searches without risking their safety. For many privacy advocates and police critics, however, the drones stir Orwellian visions of unwarranted surveillance or fears of militarized weapon-toting devices patrolling the skies.
It's coming. I think China already has the technology for militarized drones. And I don't know if they're using them yet, but I'm sure.
Oh, they're doing that, yeah. And they're developing drone swarms, right? Where the drones fly in formation like that. LAPD brass, along with police commissioners, tried to ease those concerns by promising careful restrictions on when the drones would be used and strong oversight of the pilot program. Weapons and facial recognition technology will also be prohibited. But some critics say they could not trust the department to follow its own rules, no matter how stringent. Mission creep is, of course, the concern, said Jim Lafferty of the National Lawyers Guild, Los Angeles. The history of this department is of starting off with supposedly good intentions about the new toys that it gets, only to then get too tempted by what they can do with those toys.
Well, there is a huge increase in deaths of officers, which doesn't really get reported. Black Lives Matter tends to dominate, but actually Blue Lives Matter
Yes.
is another movement where it's really it's incredible what's happening to police officers
Yes.
all over the country.
And I did see that article. Talk for a couple of minutes while I look for it.
Yeah, actually, I saw the bumper sticker, Blue Lives Matter, and it made me think about it. So I did a little bit of research, and it's quite shocking, the increase of homicides and attacks against officers. And this is, probably spawning the the need for what they consider an important safety measure for officers to have drones do the preliminary investigation of a dangerous situation.
Okay, I got it. FBI statistics show dramatic increase in officers intentionally killed in line of duty. This is an article that came out yesterday in out of Indianapolis. The FBI just released statistics for law enforcement officers killed and assaulted in the line of duty in 2016. These statistics highlight nationwide data on officers killed in the last few years. In total, 118 officers were killed in the line of duty in 2016. Of those, 66 were killed intentionally. That's a significant increase from 2015, where 41 officers were killed by criminal acts. That's in the show last year. 17 officers were killed while ambushed, 13 were killed answering calls for disturbances, and 9 were killed while investigating suspicious people or circumstances. So far this year, 104 officers have been killed in the line of duty. Right. Yeah, that's certainly very concerning. And yes, and then the police are likely then to respond and by bringing in this kind of technology to increase safety, which is quite understandable. But it seems kind of like a step towards the militarization of police.
Yeah, I think they will be probably armed drones within 5 years. That will
it probably won't even take that long.
Probably not, but that's going to be something that's if there's a hostage situation, or these things will be like sniper machines that take out people.
Yes.
And once that happens, then if the government turns to a more authoritarian direction, then it's going to be, that technology will be a curse upon its citizens.
And the King has talked about the kind of police we need is the community policeman who sort of walks around and says hi to people sitting on their porch and this kind of thing. So policeman is friendly police officer who also then protects the community, not the sort of kind of policeman who's using drone to spy on you or to threaten you with its weapons.
And it shouldn't be just one policeman out of thousands and thousands of citizens. We should all have the right to conceal and carry, and all be citizen sheriffs. That we are all walking around looking out for the welfare of our fellow man.
Yes.
And if there's criminal activity, we get involved. We put an end to it right there and then.
Yes. Yes. All right. Shall we take a short break, and then we'll come back with our final segment after this break.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Shoeless feet, lonely eyes looking back at me. Will we leave behind the innocent to grieve?
And welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, October 18th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, sitting in for the second Kim Chun-wook, Young Jin-moon. I'm here with Mr. Greg Knoll. And Project Veritas has been doing some pretty good work, very good work actually. They call it American Pravda, NYT, and they've put out 3 videos so far. And the most recent one involves, they put out one, and one of the New York Times guys came out and says, "Oh, they kind of puffed this guy up as if he was some important person, but I never met him, and he has an entry-level job." Well, this time they have the senior homepage editor for the digital edition. Senior homepage editor. That's not an entry-level job, is it?
Senior editor, no.
No. The senior homepage editor reveals biased political agenda at New York Times. New York Times senior homepage editor Des Xu admits company culture of blatant bias at NYT is widely understood to be liberal-leaning. NYT
Is this a surprise to anybody? I don't know.
Well, to us it's not, but to get someone there to admit it on camera,
Right.
because they say, "Well, we're objective.
We're
all the
journalists,
news is fit to print."
Right.
This kind of thing. NYT journalist, if we write about him, Trump, and how insanely crazy he is, maybe people will read it and be like, "We shouldn't vote for him." So their objective is that. Calls Trump an oblivious idiot, and Pence effing horrible because of religious views. Admits New York Times reports on what readers want. They call it the Trump bump, says Xu, regarding the influx of subscribers since Trump's presidency began. So actually the New York Times financial, if you look at their financial reports at least, they're doing better now since Trump came in, because I guess, people are gathering in their camps. And people who are on the fence are going one side or the other. And she said, the main objective is to grab subscribers. You do that any way you can.
Sell your soul.
Yes. And here's the story. Project Veritas has released a video of the New York Times homepage editor Des Xu, who was caught on hidden camera admitting that the Times has a liberal bias in attacking President Donald Trump and Vice President Mike Pence. This is part 3 of their American Pravda NYT investigation. When confronted with the notion that during the election the Times front page for which she is responsible was completely focused around Trump, she tells the undercover journalist that NYT reporters tried to influence the election with their reporting. I think one of the things that maybe journalists were thinking about is like, oh, if we write about him and how insanely crazy he is and how ludicrous his policies are, then maybe people will read it and be like, oh, wow, we shouldn't vote for him. She admits that the New York Times has a clearly defined liberal-leaning bias. The New York Times is not, it's widely understood to be liberal-leaning, but American newspapers are not supposed to claim a bias. They're supposed to be objective. So but the New York Times is not left? The Project Veritas journalist asked. She clarified, "I'm not saying that they're not. I'm saying it's widely understood to be left-leaning. Widely understood to be left-leaning." We all agree on it. I think we're all on the same page on that one. She also tells the undercover journalist that reporting objectively is simply too difficult for the Times. Our main stories are supposed to be objective. It's very difficult in this day and age to do that. Xu blames the business model for the New York Times' lack of fact-based reporting. Quote, "This is what I was trying to say, is like the last couple of years is change for the bad. I think the business model itself is just, there's so much panic about what to do that, what else is a company supposed to do? That's the conundrum. Is that a business model in this time is built on what the readers want?"
They know their base.
The New York Times senior homepage editor goes on to explain the positive effect of Trump's victory. Since the election, speaking on, for the New York Times, our subscriptions have skyrocketed since. They call it the Trump bump. This sentiment was echoed by Nick Dudich, who was featured in American Pravda Part 1 and 2. He explains, honestly, Trump has driven us more business than anybody else. Anytime he says failing, we add a boost of subscribers, which, by the way, in their most recent video, Project Veritas said that they called the New York Times and asked for this guy, Nick Dudich, and the operator said, "I'm sorry, he's not on the list." So
he's gone.
Previously they called him and the operator transferred them to that number, but this time she says, I'm sorry, he's not on the directory. I don't see that name in the directory. So apparently either he has a dedicated line or we don't know, but more likely he's been fired. The New York Times responded to part one in a statement calling Dudic a recent hire in a junior position. Later, executive editor of the NYT, Dean Beckett, described Dudic as a kid who just started his career in journalism. The same cannot be said for Ms. Xu, a senior-level employee who has been with the Times since January 2009. Des Xu claims that the New York Times has to chase clicks in the current media environment. The Washington Post, people who have paywalls up, the main objective is to grab subscribers. You do that any way you can. So this is how Project Veritas does it. You know, they don't go out and get one video and then put it up and then go in and get another video and put it up. They get a bunch of them.
Yeah.
They get a series of them, and then they put one up, and then the target will come out with a statement saying, he's just an entry-level kid.
Right.
And then they'll put out a second one that shows not an entry-level but a senior employee saying the same thing. And so that kind of,
debunks whatever.
Debunks or whatever
they.
People who are targets of Project Veritas will probably need to learn that lesson.
Don't give away the secret.
And I'm sure they're going around saying, "Who have you been talking to lately? Did anybody come and talk to you about?"
I'm sure all liberal organizations are giving seminars on not to talk to questionable people.
Yes, I wonder if Washington Post is perhaps trying to see if anyone's been talking to their people.
But in one sense, this is not really news to people who follow political journalism. This is common sense knowledge that they are extreme left-leaning in their. I mean, if you just look at the number of positive, neutral articles written about Trump versus extremely vicious articles, it's like 80-90%. I think is the percentage.
But as this person says, that's what the readers want.
Right. They're feeding their customer base.
They don't want objective reporting.
Right.
They want biased reporting.
Yep.
And so that's what they're getting.
Mm-hmm. Same with conservative publications too. Conservatives don't want to read liberal articles. So I guess both sides are kind of guilty of this kind of bias.
What does it say, though, about the future of journalism?
We've become like the tabloids, right?
Well, no, I don't. Not like tabloids, but but I think, but in general, I think conservative outlets tend to are more likely to show both sides. Though I think I've noticed that. They will acknowledge the left, and then they will give their views. So at least there's an acknowledgement there, whereas the left pretends to be objective, and I think that's the problem. So breaking down that mask of objectivity, I think, is probably the important thing that Veritas is doing.
Yeah, no, that's a very good point. They take this so-called high road of objectivity, which is a total farce. Okay, we're about out of time. I'm looking for maybe, no more time? Do I have time for just one more? Death toll from San Diego hepatitis outbreak rises to 19, 500 cases confirmed. Private Isle compound on Long Island lists for $125 million. Let's see what else is interesting here. Mystery sailors found dead at home, days apart. Time set for another round of layoffs. Rise, Chinese president heralds a new era in which country is a mighty force. Yes, that was Xi Jinping. Oh, yeah. Remember Jose Campos? The security guard at Mandalay? Yeah.
He's going to come up. He's going to be on Ellen DeGeneres. What's her name? DeGeneres. On that show today. According to
choice of shows.
and she actually tweeted a photograph of her interviewing him, together with the mechanic or the maintenance worker who was also shot. So, the conspiracy deepens.
Will she
Ellen,
ask?
Ellen was involved. It was all Ellen.
Yeah. Will she ask the tough questions?
Oh my goodness. He won't talk anyway. So that apparently is happening this
And
afternoon.
what's his testimony? What's the
Well, we don't know. We have to watch the Ellen show in order to find out. Yeah.
You'll be tuning into?
No, I will not. I will be
No?
reading about it tomorrow morning. All right. So have a good day, and we'll see you tomorrow. We hope that the world stays quiet.
Isn't this your prediction today of North Korea?
It is.
Yes.
And it looks like I was wrong, because usually it would have happened by now, because
Right.
they always shoot their missiles in
At
the
the
morning.
beginning, yeah.
At the beginning of the morning, you know.
Right.
Asia's morning.
Okay.
So the CIA was wrong. I was wrong. We're all wrong. We don't know what's going to happen.
Is he
All
still
right.
in hiding?
Who?
Dictator Kim?
I don't know that.
Okay.
Yes.
He hasn't been.
I don't think he's
hasn't
really out and
been
about so
found,
much,
yeah.
because, you know, there are aircraft carriers and
Right,
submarines and all
right.
these things stationed around the
So
Korean
he might be
Peninsula.
in Switzerland.
So who knows? Maybe he's on the Ellen Show. I don't know. Have a great day. God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.
We all sing it together. Come on. There's beauty in my brokenness. I've got true love. Instead of pain. Anybody free tonight?